this group. Enough on Mary. Hey, good morning. Glad to have all of you here, especially all of you that are online watching, because there's more of you than there are in here right now. And we're really glad that you're out there. I want to finish up our series on marriage. And it has been, at least for me, if we can shut the door in the back, that would be great. For me, it has been a really good time because I have to think about my own marriage. I reminisce. Every now and then I will ask Wanda, is that true? And she'll reply, I don't remember. And so much for troubleshooting. But we're going to wrap this up today with 20 marriage lessons. I got about halfway through last week, and I want to pick up where I left off. Before we get to number 11, I want to go back to number 10 because we barely touched on it last week. And I know I said this last week. I just recognize that I believe this, is that like every one of these, all 20 of these, I could build a case for it being the most important one. As I thought through them and wrote down what are these things that it was my answer to somebody that asked me, how is it that you and Wanda have stayed married as long as you have, and why does it appear to be pretty healthy? And my answers, I really had to work through that. How would I articulate what we've done and why we've done it throughout all of these years? And so I guess that's why they are all important, because I thought through each one of them. And they are all true. Number 10, which I just barely got into last week, was the power of forgiveness. Now, I would say this about forgiveness, and that is that the power of forgiveness is what has sustained me as a person and as a pastor and as a husband equally throughout my life. I have talked with a lot of people, maybe in marriage counseling or maybe just through issues in their lives. And when I kind of broach the subject of forgiveness, there is often pushback right away with things like, well, you don't understand what I'm going through. You've never had to live with this person. And it can be them talking about a father or a co-worker or a boss. It doesn't even have to be a spouse. But the pushback is, to me, is you don't know what you're talking about. Just to casually infer that the next step is to forgive. I recognize that forgiveness is complicated, and if you can get past the complication of forgiving, it's just hard. It can be really, really, really difficult. And I don't ever want to come off calloused and say, well, and to get to that spot where I just say, well, you just need to forgive, because I don't think it works that way. Forgiveness is something that starts way before there is a need to forgive. You have to, it's kind of like a muscle that is developed throughout your lifetime to be able to forgive somebody, and then to be able to forgive quickly is even harder. To forgive completely, for some, that feels like the most difficult task ever. But I'm not going to back off. I think that, first of all, carrying around an unforgiving heart or carrying around a lack of forgiveness directed towards somebody is disobedience. We are commanded in Scripture to forgive, and that is always my starting point. I think there are times that we could appeal back to Jesus and go, but Jesus, this is way too hard to forgive right now. And I think he would probably look at us and go, yep, I know a little bit about difficulty in forgiving. Some of the people that I cared the most about nailed me to a cross. And somewhere Jesus had the strength, at least in his human side, to be able to say, forgive them because they don't know what they're doing. I'm just telling you, it's there. The commands are there, and it needs to become a priority in our marriages, is to forgive. With Wanda and I, forgiveness was always present. It was always an expressed goal. It was something that needed to happen. So we did. I will tell you, I have made more than my share of bonehead moves in my life that required her forgiveness of me. I suspect I may have a few more in my pocket in the years ahead. Every time she has unconditionally forgiven, and we've moved past those. Helped me see myself more clearly and never punished me. Now, I say that in answer to the question, how did we make it through all of these years? Well, that's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons. That's how we got to where we are. And I would caution you and challenge you to consider making daily forgiveness a part of your routine. Number 11. We can go to this one, Marshall. This one kind of ties to the power of forgiveness, and this is where we're picking up from last week. Go ahead and change the slide. Kindness is also a command in the Bible. Kindness. Kindness we have an easier time defining. Or rather, we can tell what kindness doesn't look like. Can you tell quickly if your spouse is not being kind to you in any given moment? Absolutely. Absolutely. You know what the lack of kindness looks like and feels like. And I'm just telling you, kindness needs to rule the day. Every day, kindness needs to be expressed in everything that we do. And you can say back to me, but you don't live with this person. It is so hard to be kind to them when they do fill in the blank, right? If this sounds unkind, I'm sorry, but I don't care. It doesn't really matter. There is never a time that kindness doesn't work. And even if it doesn't work to change them, you know what kindness does for you? It changes you. It's the nature of kindness. no meanness. It is not often in my life, yeah it is, but when I read the Bible, I have this tendency to read it and go, what is God trying to say to me right here and right now? It is not often that I just take the exact words of the Bible and apply them exactly as they are written. I think there is nuance. I think there is context. I think there are a lot of different things. I have never run the risk of plucking out my eye. Okay? But it says it in the Bible, right? If your eye offends you, if you've got a problem with what you're looking at, just pluck your eye out. It has never once occurred to me to do that. Or to cut off my hands. So I think we have to look at the Bible somewhat carefully at times. But I will tell you one that I take absolutely literally, even though I don't think it was meant to be interpreted literally. I just choose to. And that is the command in Ephesians, do not let the sun go down on your anger. So, in our marriage, as well as our life, we pretty much give each other 24 hours. I think that's a pretty good rule in marriage. You got 24 hours to deal with it. Then you forgive. You have 24 hours to deal with your anger. Get over it. All anger does is hurt you anyway, so get over it. And I understand in counseling, people look at me and they go, I'm just not wired that way. It's difficult for me to get over what they do, what they've done to me. It hurts. And I'll tell you, yeah, it does. But it hurts you even worse to hold on to it. We have made it a practice of getting rid of it in the day. There were years that we would stay up at night after our boys had gone to bed and continue to talk. Now, I am the wordy one in the group, so Wanda would say things like, "It's okay. It's over. It's fine." And I would go, "No, it's not. We need to keep talking, because I'm not fine." I know it would happen, and then I would go, "Hey, wake up! I'm not done." Okay, what did you just say? It was kind of funny because it was in those moments that I realized she was not angry at me. I think the anger was probably starting to come up again because she just wanted to go to sleep. And I wanted to keep talking. It's the way that it is. Just consider challenging yourself and your marriage to say you got one 24-hour period to work through this. I realize there are some issues that are much deeper and much more complicated and require more time. But we can certainly put the anger on the shelf to be able to get to the issue. And that may be more helpful altogether. But by the way, if you are yellers, if that's a way that you get the anger out of you, I would encourage you to dial it down a little. Yelling is really not a productive thing to do in marriage conflict. Even though the yelling may make you feel better, yelling has a tendency to feel like you're under attack, and you don't want your partner to ever believe that they are under attack. They need to believe that they are in it together with you. Number 12, which is connected to number 10 and number 11, and you've heard me say this, and that is to talk a lot about everything. One of the common marriage conflicts that I spend time with people on is that one in the partnership wants to talk and the other one doesn't want to talk. You ever heard of that? Ever experienced that in your relationship? I don't know. But I would say this: talkers need to learn to be more patient, and non-talkers need to get with the program. Okay? Just need to get with the program, because it is not acceptable to say, well, she knows what I think about it anyway. Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe she just wants to hear you say it. Maybe she wants to have a chance to form an appropriate rebuttal to your perspective. Maybe your perspective needs a proper rebuttal. The only way you can do that is to talk. And you got to learn how to do that. Staying up as late as it takes to work out misunderstanding, for us, is still a value. It's still part of who we are. And it's also that place where you get to know each other. It's fascinating to me. I have couples say to me frequently in marriage counseling, well, we know each other really well. And my response that I want to say in that moment is, no, you don't. Probably not, if you don't talk a lot. I think one of the things that happens in marriage often is that if you sense that your partner doesn't really want to talk, then you learn how to not talk. And when you make the decision to not talk, they stop learning about you. So I don't know who the talker is. Well, I do in some of your relationships, but I don't know who the talker is and who the not talker is. But I would say, if you are the not talker, you could start by being a listener carefully, and then when there is an opportunity, you can talk. Because I think, this is just a hunch, I think that at least half of your partnership, could be your full partnership, has a lot of stuff that they want to say, but they don't feel like it's ever the right time. Or they feel like they would not be heard. It goes back to the idea of creating safe spaces where we can speak to each other. Look, if there could be one great thing that happened out of these 5 weeks that we have spent together, it would be that the two of you in your partnership make more time to talk and to listen. It's just really good. And it may be hard. It may not be what you know how to do the best, but you can grow in that, and it'll be helpful. Number 13. I really wrestled with how to say this that would make sense. So it came out as respect the journey. And what I mean by that is in our conversations sometimes we have this ability to discount what our partner is going through or has gone through in their past, as if what they think or what they feel or what they are going through is not important. Do you realize that each one of you are the way that you are because of the sum total of what you have gone through in your life? It has all made you what you are. In your marriages, you have not gone through the exact same experiences prior to your marriage. And you are still not going through the same experiences. You can go through a tragedy in your married life together. Okay, it could be a family tragedy, it could be a work tragedy, it could be a friend or whatever. And I guarantee you, you don't process it the same because of where you've come from, because of the person that you are. And one of the really, really damaging things we can do in our marriages is to not respect where that other person is coming from and what's made them what they are. Now, I could tell you a whole bunch of mistakes that I made when we were young in our marriage. I don't make them nearly as often as I made them when we were young. Partly as I think I'm a lot smarter than I was then. But I ended up focusing on Wanda's behavior that I didn't like. Okay? When we first started dating, when we were young in our marriage, she would often get jealous. Like jealous of other women or jealous of how I spent my time with other people. My response to her jealousy was, well, you need to grow up. I'm not doing anything wrong. Why are you jealous? And I would speak, I think, in a kind tone, but my kind tone was really a condescending tone that didn't recognize that there was a reason, actually a whole group of reasons that had led Wanda to this spot in her really young life as an adolescent and as a young woman to feel that way. But I didn't recognize that. Honestly, I think I considered myself spiritually superior to her because I could see it happening, and B, it didn't happen to me. And so my conversations with her early on and my actions often, I think, came across like, what's wrong with you? Why are you acting that way? And then it turned very quickly into, your behavior is affecting how I live my life. Okay. It was a painful journey, a painful part of our journey, to have 3 or 4 of my closest friends take me out behind the woodshed to point out where I was wrong on just about every level. There was a decided lack of kindness in those moments directed at me because of people who cared about Wanda and cared about our marriage enough to speak the truth in a way that I needed to hear it. I didn't realize what I was doing. I thought I was just pointing out her flaws so that she could fix them. Okay, is anybody relating here? Am I like touching a nerve for anybody else, or am I the only oaf?
You're not alone.
Okay, I know I'm not alone. This is what we do, and I'm not going to say that guys are worse at this than women, but I want to. But I'll be fair and say that it could be the other. It could be the other half too. I just know my half really well. And I needed that. I needed to grow up. I needed to learn how to create a safe space, and I needed to learn how to respect. First off, I needed to listen carefully to what Wanda had gone through. I kind of carried this attitude of, yeah, I know this, all this stuff happened to you, and you don't like your parents either, and that kind of stuff. Now, that is not what she needed from me. She needed space. She needed respect. She needed to know from me that I knew what she had gone through, and that whatever time and whatever space she needed to work on that, I would do whatever I could to help that along. I needed to learn that. It's a hard lesson. It's a really hard lesson. Respect the journeys of your partners. Learn more about them. I suspect there are things in your marriages that are not being said out of a fear, maybe just a slight fear of what the repercussions would be if I told you what I was really thinking and really feeling. That doesn't make your marriage bad. Doesn't even make it unhealthy. It probably makes it fairly normal. But it's what we need to do if we want to grow and if we want to get deeper. Any comments? Are you sufficiently beat down? Okay, good. Number 14. Let people inside. Let people inside your marriage and your family. Let them in. Let friends come in. Let younger people come in. Let older people come in. Let them be part of your lives. Let them speak into what you are going through. Not just your own children, but you could start there. That's a funny thing that we sometimes need to say to parents. You need to start listening to your children now, especially the older they get. Look, I'm gonna brag on this just a little bit. I love watching Lindsay with Tatum. Okay, because it's probably out of self-preservation sometimes, but these conversations that you do where you pull her off, I'm still messing with her and making her do stuff, and Lindsay will look at me and go, and then she will take Tatum off to the side, and faces will be this close. And she'll ask her questions like, what are you feeling right now? Tell me what you're going through right now. It's remarkable. Keep doing that, by the way, when she's 14. So we do that with our kids. We do that with our friends. We let people in. There's so much wisdom that is out there in the world. Let people in closer. We went overboard on this. I probably would not recommend that anybody do what we did. But people moved into our house all the time. We always had people living with us. Usually, high school or college kids, youth ministry interns, even had a couple of times married couples moved in with us because they didn't have anywhere else to live. And so they came in and lived with us. And one of the things that happened to us is that by letting people live in our house is that we couldn't hide. In other words, people saw us for who we were. Have you ever had this tendency in your marriage or in your family to go, boy, I'm really glad nobody sees us behind closed doors. I'm glad nobody sees what our family is really like. Well, you need to stop that. Because when people get to see what you're really like, if there's, well, yeah, they may look in there. You ever had that experience in your life? I would just say nothing wrong with cleaning the middle bedroom. It has become a life goal for us. Okay? That it is gonna get done before we kick it. Okay? I know it's going to. But maybe the middle bedrooms of our lives will have a tendency to get cleaned up if we know that people are going to see them. Not the middle bedroom of the house. Who cares? But we all have these closets and middle bedrooms of our lives that we don't want anybody to see. So consequently, we don't work on them. They're not important enough to work on. Well, when you invite people deeper into your lives, they see those things. Have you ever had those moments where somebody has been over at your house and you go, I can't believe that they're seeing this part of us? I would say be grateful for that. Because if it's something that needs to be worked on, you'll work on it. Letting people inside is great. It helps you walk the talk instead of just talking it. Number 15, again for us, we valued simplicity. And what I mean by that is that for us, and again, this is extremely personal, which if you want to learn a lesson from it, you can. If not, it's kind of immaterial. But for us, this worked. And that is, we are both really comfortable with simple things. And so when it came time for us to face the music that we didn't have enough money to get some things that our kids wanted to have or we wanted to have, it didn't erupt into horrible financial conflict. We looked at Corey and said, sorry, that's the car you're going to drive. So Corey makes lemonade out of the lemon that he, literally the lemon, that he had to drive. The car we handed to him in 2000, when did you start to drive? 2002? In 2002 was a 1976 Ford LTD. Yep. Two-door. The doors are bigger than the cars you drive. The door. There were dents all over it. And he embraced the challenge. It became the favored car at Louisville High School, in the Louisville High School parking lot. Everybody knew when Corey came to town. Okay? Did he want something different? Of course he did. Did we want something different? Of course we did. But we couldn't. And so you learn to say no. Great stress has been relieved in our marriage by altering the way that we viewed money. I would recommend that. Because it will lead you on the pathway to contentment, which is obedience to God. We are commanded to be content with what we have. An extension of that, number 16, is that people for us are always more important than things. I would recommend that likewise for the good of your marriage. Now, it can also become a source of potential conflict, because if people are more important than things, then having a spotless house or a finely manicured lawn sometimes is not all that important, and it probably needs to be more important than it is. But in the long run, and you guys know us, we will drop anything if somebody has a need. And that has served us well because we are both that way. We are just both that way. And so it allowed us to affirm each other's character by being able to do that. You both may not be that way. You have to figure out ways of affirming each other's character somehow. Number 17, which is an extension of 15 and 16. And I think this is true for everybody. Everybody needs to have this. And that is to learn to be generous. To be generous with your money, to be generous with your time. For us, this is, and I don't know exactly why. For you, I think it was more the kind of person that you are. But my parents taught me when I went to church to give money in the plate. Do you remember when your children, some of you when your children were young, and you gave your son or your daughter a quarter to take to children's church because they were going to have an offering and they got to put it in? Or it is the one reason that I don't like that we don't pass an offering plate anymore here. And that is that your children often don't get to see you put money in the offering plate. Most of us give our money to our church family now by some kind of automated service, don't we? You know, it just sort of comes out of the checkbook. I love that. It has been great for normalizing how much we give or increasing. It's a good thing. The problem with it is that you got to come up with some really creative ways of teaching your children that you're giving money away. They have to see it in some other ways. When we were missionaries, one of the things that we did one time, I don't know if it made an impact. It's probably long forgotten. It impacted me, but one time we took our missionary paycheck. You know, we got it once a month. You know, people would support us as missionaries. They'd send it to the organization, and then the organization would write us a check for how much money people sent in that month. That was how we got our living expenses. And so our kids were at that point in time, at that age, struggling. They wanted to have what everybody else had. They were tired of eating the 39-cent menu at Taco Bell. They wanted the 59-cent thing. Do you remember that? 39, 59, 79. We would tell them, no, nothing off the 79-cent one. They were not happy with that decision. So one time what we did is we took our paycheck for that month. I went down to the bank and I got it all in $1 bills. And we came and we sat at the dinner table and we stacked up the money and said, here's where all of this goes, and showed them. And I remember, you were too young to remember this, I think, but showing them that even in that spot, there was that time in our life, there was this money that we gave away to people. We gave it to our church, and we gave it to other missionaries, and we gave it in other ways. And them looking at it and then asking the question, well, why are we giving that away? You know, we need it. Why are we giving that away? And it gave us the opportunity to speak on a deeper level to our kids. We couldn't have done that had we not had those deeper conversations with each other about generosity. It has fundamentally changed us in so many ways. So I would encourage you in your marriages, if you are already generous, be more generous. If you don't think you're generous, then work towards generosity. Work at it. Treat others the way that God treats you. It's a wonderful lesson. Number 18, I got to go really quick because Buzzy's going to come up here in 4 minutes. You have to accept that bad things happen. We who are older have gone through tons of difficulty. Ours is not any harder than what you have gone through. Maybe not even nearly as hard as some of yours. But we have to learn to accept that bad things happen. And that has allowed our marriage to grow and become stronger through the years. We learned at an early age not to run from difficulty. Learn not to blame God. We learned to widen our vision in the things that we were going through. We learned always to look for the good. We joke in our marriage, I'm the glass is half full, she is the glass is half empty. It was how she was raised. Her parents raised her to be pessimistic. They just did. They said it's a waste of time to be optimistic. Being pessimistic will prepare you for life. You'll never be disappointed if you always expect bad things to happen. Can you imagine teaching a kid that? But that's what she was taught. And so through the years, we've had to work through that. Me, I am Pollyanna. Okay? Everything is seen through rose-colored glasses for me. And so we've had to help each other through that. But we accept that bad things happen. Number 19, make room for differences of opinion. You do not have to agree on everything. You don't. You don't have to agree on everything. You do have to reach consensus on what you're going to do about it, but you don't have to agree on it. You have to agree on everything. We have had some lively conversations in our house over theology and politics and parenting and you name it. It's okay to have differences of opinion. And then the last one. It's my parting shot to all of you on this series on marriage. And that is you just need to crush fear. Do not live afraid. You don't want to live afraid of anything. We are not afraid to die. Sometimes people walk around us and think that we are just a little too cavalier about talking about the end of our lives. Sorry. We are not afraid to die. We both have an abiding faith in a God who will be there at the end for us. We don't know what it's going to look like. Doesn't really matter much. But we're not afraid to die. We have absolute confidence in our eternal destiny. Because of that, it's pretty hard to overreact to some other things. Just consider making a commitment to deepening your marriage, your union with each other. Everybody will be better for it, including you. Now, everything that I've said, I'm going to, over the next week, I'm going to post again. All of the points and a lot of the illustrations and so forth, they're going to show up, and there will be links on our church website. It'll go directly to my blog, and that's where I'm going to post those things. So if you would like to come back and rethink them and talk about them, that would make my heart happy. So that's it. Let's sing a little bit, and we'll end.